Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Hello and welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan. We're with Snarful Solutions Group, based right here in Sacramento, California.
And today is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. Let's kick things off with a quick check on what's happening outside and in the markets.
Sounds good. Here in Sacramento, it's looking like a beautiful day, sunny, with a high around 85 degrees Fahrenheit.
Nice. Nationally, though, a bit more active. The forecast shows severe thunderstorms and heavy rain expected across parts of the southern plains through Friday. Also seeing potential storms in the northwest and upper Midwest.
Right, and there's an increased risk of flash flooding, specifically in East Texas today, so something to watch out for if you're in that area.
Definitely. And turning to the markets, quick look back at Tuesday's close, June 10th. The Dow Jones finished at 42,866.87.
And the S&P 500 closed yesterday at 6,038.81.
Okay, so that's the backdrop. Today we're diving into our internal Snarful Tech article report. We use this to track the key developments, and our plan is to break down the top 3 tech news stories making waves right now.
Exactly. We'll pull out the key details and really talk through how these stories connect to your everyday life and work.
All right, let's get started. First up, a story that generated a lot of buzz, coming from OpenAI's Sam Altman and his recent blog post, The Gentle Singularity. What really caught our eye in the report were his claims about resource use for ChatGPT.
Yeah, this was interesting. He put out some specific numbers. For energy, he's saying an average ChatGPT query uses about 0.34 watt hours.
0.34 watt hours. That honestly sounds pretty small. How does that compare to everyday things?
Well, he gave a couple of comparisons. It's roughly what an oven might use in like just over a second. Or think about a high-efficiency LED light bulb. It's what that bulb would use in maybe a couple of minutes.
Okay, so per query, not a huge draw. What about water? That's been a bigger point of contention with the water footprint of AI.
It has. And his number here is even more striking. He claims it's about 0.0000085 gallons per query.
That's a lot of zeros.
It is. He visualized it as roughly 1/15 of a teaspoon of water. Very, very small amount per interaction.
Now, here's where the report flags something important. We've seen previous reports suggesting much higher water usage, especially for training older models like GPT-3. And remember those estimates for GPT-4, using something like 3 water bottles worth for generating just 100 words.
Exactly. So Altman's new figure for a typical ChatGPT query is, well, dramatically lower than those earlier widely cited figures. It raises questions.
Like, is it just massive efficiency improvements? Or are we comparing apples and oranges, maybe the cost of running a query versus training the whole model?
Could be either or both. The report doesn't definitively say, but it highlights the discrepancy. Altman's broader view, though, looking forward, is that the cost of intelligence itself should eventually basically drop to almost the cost of electricity. He envisions this future of abundant energy and intelligence, maybe around 2030.
That's quite a vision. But his blog post wasn't just about resource costs, was it? The report indicated he made some pretty bold predictions about the future of AI.
Oh, absolutely. That was the main thrust. He basically declared that the takeoff has started. He believes we're genuinely close to building digital superintelligence.
Close. That feels strong.
It is. And his core argument, as highlighted in the sources we looked at, is that the fundamental scientific understanding we gained building models up to GPT-4 is actually sufficient to get us to artificial general intelligence, or AGI, and then eventually to artificial superintelligence, ASI.
Which, as the report points out, puts him in direct opposition to some other big names in the field, right? Like Meta's Yann LeCun.
Precisely. LeCun and others argue that current large language models, while impressive, are not on the path to true human-like general intelligence. So there's a real debate happening at the highest levels about the right path forward.
So Altman thinks we have the keys, essentially.
Yeah.
Did he lay out a timeline for when he sees these breakthroughs happening?
He did.
Yeah.
And it's ambitious. The report pulled these milestones directly from his post. First, 2025. So next year, he expects AI agents capable of doing real cognitive work, like coding, autonomous coding agents.
Next year. Wow. Okay, what's next?
By 2026, he predicts AI systems discovering genuinely novel scientific insights, things humans haven't figured out yet.
Okay.
2027 could bring capable robots performing complex physical tasks out in the real world.
Real-world robots in 3 years.
Then looking out to 2030, he anticipates a multifold increase in individual productivity across the board, driven by AI tools.
A multifold increase. That's huge. We're already seeing hints of that, aren't we?
Well, the report mentions that OpenAI is hearing from scientists, for example, who are already reporting their productivity is up by 2 or even 3 times using current AI. So yeah, the early signals might be there.
And the timeline extends even further, right? Beyond 2030.
Yes, by 2035, he's talking about possibilities like advanced brain-computer interfaces becoming viable, and maybe even AI enabling large-scale efforts like space colonization.
Brain-computer interfaces, space colonization, that's moving incredibly fast. But what about the downsides? Massive disruption seems inevitable with that kind of change.
He absolutely acknowledges that. The sources show he expects significant societal disruption, particularly with job displacement as AI takes over certain tasks. Entire categories of work could change or disappear.
So how does he square that?
His argument is that the sheer speed and scale of wealth creation from this AI-driven productivity boom will be unprecedented. It will happen so fast, he believes, that it will give society the resources and maybe the impetus to implement new policies like universal basic income or other safety nets that might seem radical today.
That perspective kind of echoes what Ilya Sutskever, OpenAI's former chief scientist, has said, right? His view was included in the sources too.
Yeah, Sutskever's point, as the report captured it, was maybe even more fundamental. He argued that AI will eventually be capable of doing all human jobs.
All jobs. How does he reason that?
His logic, basically, is that the human brain is a biological computer. Since digital computers can, in principle, simulate any physical process, they should eventually be able to replicate or exceed the brain's capabilities. Therefore, no cognitive work is fundamentally beyond AI's reach in the long run.
Okay, so if this superintelligence, whether it does all jobs or just drastically changes most of them, is potentially coming soon, according to Altman, what does he think we need to do now?
The report highlighted 2 main priorities from his post. First, solving the alignment problem. That means ensuring these powerful AI systems have goals and values that align with, overall human well-being, making sure they don't optimize for something narrow, like social media algorithms optimizing for engagement at the expense of what we actually want long-term.
Right, the alignment challenge. What's the second priority?
Making sure the technology is cheap, widely available, and not concentrated in the hands of just a few governments or corporations. He seems to believe that broad access and societal resilience are key to navigating the transition safely.
So thinking about this from the listener's perspective, maybe those tiny energy and water numbers per query don't seem like much on their own.
Right, but when you multiply that by billions or trillions of queries globally, the cumulative impact on energy grids and water resources is definitely something significant to track. It matters for infrastructure planning.
But the really immediate takeaway for you listening is probably that timeline. Agents coding next year, robots in 2027, a huge productivity jump by 2030. How does hearing that prediction land with you? Exciting. A little terrifying.
Yeah, how might that specifically change your job or even just your daily routines in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? It really pushes us to think about adaptability, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Right.
Okay, let's shift gears, moving from the far-reaching future of AI back to the devices probably in your pocket or on your desk right now. Our second big story from the report covers the highlights from Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, WWDC 2025.
Right. WWDC just wrapped up, running June 9th to 13th. This is Apple's big annual software showcase where they preview the next versions of iOS, macOS, watchOS, all of it. And the report suggests a major theme this year was a pretty significant software refresh.
And not just tweaking things around the edges, it sounds like. The report points to a big, system-wide visual overhaul.
That's the word. Sources say it's codenamed Solarium, and the inspiration is apparently drawn heavily from the look and feel of the Vision Pro's operating system, visionOS. The idea seems to be unifying the design language across iPhone, iPad, Mac, Watch, Apple TV, making everything feel more cohesive.
That sounds like maybe the biggest visual change, especially for iOS, since way back in 2013 with iOS 7 and the move away from skeuomorphism. Does the report give any hints about what this Solarium look might actually involve?
There are rumors mentioned, yeah. Things like potentially moving towards nearly round icons, especially on the home screen and in Control Center, and maybe more use of translucent sort of frosted glass effects for menus and interface elements, again, borrowing from visionOS.
Interesting. And they're also changing how they name the software versions.
Apparently so. For consistency, the sources indicate they're moving to year-based names starting this year. So we'll be getting iOS 26, iPadOS 26, macOS 26, watchOS 26, and so on. Seems like they'll associate the number with the year the software cycle pertains to.
But macOS will likely still keep its California place name.
Tradition seems likely to hold there, yes. The rumor mill, according to the report, is pointing towards Tahoe for macOS 26.
Okay, let's talk iPad. Lots of people rely on iPads for productivity. Any specific focus there in iPadOS 26?
Definitely. The report highlights a renewed push on productivity features, aiming to make the iPad Pro in particular feel more genuinely pro. This means improvements to multitasking, better ways to manage app windows, building on what they started with Stage Manager.
And the report mentioned some more ambitious rumors too, right? Like a Mac-style menu bar potentially coming to iPad?
Yeah, that was floated. And also this idea of a desktop mode for iPhones equipped with USB-C, allowing you to connect to an external display and get a more desktop-like interface.
That could be a game changer for how people use their iPhones with larger screens if it pans out.
Absolutely. It would really expand the utility for certain workflows.
Now, the elephant in the room at any tech conference these days. AI, Apple calls theirs Apple Intelligence. What did the report say about its presence at WWDC?
Well, AI was widely expected to be a huge focus, and it was discussed, but the main takeaway from the report is that some of the key, really advanced Siri updates Apple showed off previously are, well, significantly delayed.
I remember those demos, Siri understanding screen context, pulling info from multiple apps, much more natural conversation flow. What happened?
According to quotes attributed to senior Apple execs in the source materials, delivering those personalized, context-aware features is proving harder than expected. Phrases like, gonna take us longer than we thought, months away, and even nowhere near ready were mentioned in various reports.
So the revolutionary Siri overhaul we were hoping for isn't quite here yet.
It seems that way. The full vision is delayed. The report suggests we might see some smaller, more subtle updates, perhaps integrating options like Google's Gemini for certain queries. But the big leap forward isn't happening right now.
Interesting. And there was even speculation Apple might try to separate the Apple Intelligence brand from Siri in marketing.
Yeah, some sources suggested that possibly because, let's be honest, user satisfaction with Siri's current capabilities isn't always sky high. Distancing the new AI features from the existing Siri brand might be a strategic move.
Were there other AI-related features rumored, even with the main Siri stuff pushed back?
Yes, a couple of things. The report mentions a potential AI-powered battery management mode in iOS 26. The idea is it would learn your specific usage habits to optimize power saving more effectively.
That could be useful, especially if those rumors of a slimmer iPhone model with maybe a smaller battery are true.
Exactly. And then there's Project Mulberry. This is reportedly a virtual health coach feature. It would use health data from your Apple devices trained by medical professionals to offer personalized wellness advice.
A health coach built in. When might we see that?
The timeline is uncertain. Could be later in the iOS 19 cycle, maybe early to mid-2026, or perhaps it becomes a focus for a future WWDC, not expected imminently, based on the report.
What about gaming? Any news there?
The report mentioned rumors of a new centralized gaming app, something that would work across Mac, iPad, iPhone, Apple TV. It would likely integrate Game Center, act as a launcher for all your games, maybe have editorial content, probably a way to consolidate the experience and push Apple Arcade subscriptions.
And finally, any software updates trickling down to existing hardware like AirPods?
Yes, quite a few potential software-driven features for current AirPods mentioned, likely coming via iOS 26 and macOS 26. Things like new head gestures to interact with notifications, maybe an auto-pause feature if it detects you've fallen asleep listening to something.
Oh, that could be handy.
The ability to use the squeeze gesture on the stem to snap a photo, something called Audio Mix that might improve mic quality for calls or recordings, and reportedly better iPad pairing specifically for educational settings.
So, thinking about this for you, the listener, these updates are going to change the look and feel of the Apple devices you use every day. That visual overhaul, Solarium, will be very noticeable.
Right, and features like better iPad multitasking or that potential iPhone desktop mode could genuinely change how you use your devices for getting work done. The AI battery manager could mean longer phone life. The health coach, when it arrives, adds a whole new dimension.
Even the smaller things like new AirPod gestures just add layers of convenience. But what does the Siri delay tell us?
I think it really underscores just how incredibly difficult it is to build truly intelligent, context-aware AI assistants that work reliably at massive scale. It's one thing to demo a concept, quite another to ship it robustly to hundreds of millions of users, even for Apple.
A good reminder of the challenges behind the slick interfaces. Okay, let's move to our third and final story from the report. This one shifts us away from consumer tech features and into the realm of global trade and politics. It concerns President Trump's recent announcement about a trade framework with China.
That's right. The report covers President Trump making a statement via social media about the status of trade talks. He declared, in all caps, that a trade framework with China is done, subject to final approval with President A11 and me.
Is done. Pretty definitive language. Did his post include specifics about what's in this framework?
It did. He claimed the U.S. will get full magnets and any necessary rare earths supplied upfront by China.
Magnets and rare earths up front. What does China get in return, according to his post?
He stated the U.S. would provide China what was agreed to, and specifically mentioned Chinese students using our colleges and universities.
Okay. And tariffs. That's always a key part of these discussions.
He put specific numbers on those too. U.S. tariffs would reach a total of 55%, while China would face 10% tariffs from the U.S. He ended the post saying the relationship is excellent.
So that's the announcement. What's the context the report provides?
Yeah.
Was this expected?
Well, it came just after U.S. and Chinese negotiators had met in London. That was on Tuesday, Juneteenth. They did announce they'd agreed on a framework, the goal being to get the broader, more detailed trade negotiations back on a constructive path.
Okay, so a framework agreement was reached by negotiators. But did their announcement include those specific terms Trump mentioned? The immediate mineral supply, the student access, those exact tariff numbers?
That's the key point the report highlights. The negotiators' public statements about the London framework were less specific. President Trump's social media posts included details, particularly the upfront mineral supply, and that precise 55% tariff figure that hadn't been explicitly laid out by the negotiating teams themselves.
So where does that 55% figure come from then? Did the report offer any clarification?
It did reference one source citing a White House official who broke it down. Apparently, the 55% isn't a single new tariff. It's calculated by adding a baseline 10% duty plus an additional 20% charge the administration links to fentanyl issues, plus roughly 25% representing pre-existing levies and standard most favored nation rates, many of which were put in place during President Trump's first term.
Ah, okay. So it's a cumulative figure based on several components. And this wasn't the first attempt recently to reset trade talks.
No, the report reminds us there was a previous agreement reached back in May in Switzerland. That one involved a 30% levy. It also included a 90-day pause on some extremely high tariffs that were essentially acting as a trade embargo. That 90-day pause is due to expire in August.
And it's unclear if this new framework affects that August deadline.
The sources cited in the report didn't make that clear, yeah. Whether the London framework supersedes or modifies the terms of the Geneva deal, including that deadline, wasn't specified.
Now, the report also included a particularly sensitive piece of information connected to those critical minerals mentioned in the trade announcement. It concerned supply chains.
Yes, this was important context. The report referenced findings from a group called Global Rights Compliance, based in the Netherlands. The report linked dozens of multinational companies, and the sources named examples like Avon, Walmart, Nescafé, Coca-Cola, and the paint company Sherwin-Williams to potential exposure to forced labor practices in China's Xinjiang region.
How were they linked? What was the connection?
The link, according to the Global Rights Compliance Report, is through the sourcing of critical minerals from Xinjiang, specifically mentioning titanium, lithium, beryllium, and magnesium. These minerals are essential for many industries.
And what's the alleged issue with sourcing minerals from Xinjiang?
The report stated that suppliers operating in these mineral sectors within Xinjiang are at risk of participating in what the Chinese government calls labor transfer programs. However, the Global Rights Compliance Report, along with human rights groups and several governments, alleges these programs involve coercive practices, essentially forced labor, primarily targeting the Uyghur population and other Muslim minorities in the region.
That's a very serious allegation. What was the response?
The report noted that China's foreign ministry has consistently denied allegations of forced labor or forced transfers within these programs in Xinjiang. It also mentioned that the specific companies named in the Global Rights Compliance Report did not provide immediate comments when contacted by the news outlets covering the story.
Okay. And just to be crystal clear for our listeners, We're reporting impartially on the information presented across the different sources included in our tech article report regarding this complex and highly sensitive issue. We aren't taking a side, just relaying the information as presented.
Absolutely. It's crucial to handle this topic neutrally and factually based on the source material.
So bringing this back to how it connects to you, the listener. Trade deals, tariffs, access to critical minerals, these things directly impact the global economy and ultimately can affect the price you pay for goods.
Right. Think about it. Those rare earths and minerals are in your electronics. They're crucial for batteries and electric vehicles, for renewable energy tech, even things like paints and aerospace components. So securing supply chains is strategically vital for national economies and industry.
And this story also highlights the really difficult intersection of global trade, geopolitics, and ethics. It raises those tough questions about supply chain transparency and the responsibility companies have regarding the conditions under which raw materials and components are produced.
It's a stark reminder that the products we use often have complex origins tied into these much larger global dynamics.
Okay, so let's quickly recap the three main stories we unpacked today from the Snarful Tech article report.
First, we looked at Sam Altman's claims about the surprisingly low energy and water footprint of ChatGPT queries, but more significantly, his bold predictions about the rapid approach of AGI and ASI, complete with a timeline suggesting major societal shifts driven by AI advancements within the next decade.
Then, we shifted to Apple's WWDC 2025. The big news there is the major visual overhaul, codenamed Solarium, coming to iOS, macOS, and other platforms, alongside New Year-based software naming. We also covered expected productivity boosts for iPad and new AirPod features, while noting the significant delays for those promised more advanced Siri capabilities.
And finally, we discussed President Trump's announcement of a done trade framework with China. We detailed the terms he laid out regarding critical minerals, student access, and specific tariff figures, while also providing the context of the recent negotiator meetings and, importantly, including the sensitive reports concerning potential forced labor links in critical mineral supply chains originating from China's Xinjiang region, emphasizing our impartial presentation of that information.
Taken together, these stories really paint a picture of rapid technological change, the evolution of our personal devices, and the complex global stage where trade, politics, and ethics collide. It leaves you thinking about the speed of progress, but also the underlying dependencies and considerations that come with it.
It's all deeply interconnected. Staying aware of these different pieces helps connect the dots on how our world is changing.
We're here to help here at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.